and welcome to the Latina Leaders Podcast, where we celebrate, empower, and uplift Hispanic and BIPOC women. Guests lead with purpose and redefine what it is to be a leader. I'm your host, Jennifer Cortez, founder of Latina Leaders, creative entrepreneur, and passionate advocate for La Comunidad. Today's guest is a driven professional with a unique journey. After years dedicated to raising a family, she returned to university and earned her Bachelor of Commerce in 2019. She's enjoying her current journey in the financial industry, and she believes it's never too late to embrace lifelong learning. I am happy to introduce Helen Williams. Hi, Helen.
Hi.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing very well. Happy to be here.
So part of the intro, I did not say that you are my sister as well. Mi hermana.
Yes, and that's definite. I'm very proud of that. So thanks so much for having me here, Jen.
Yes, of course, I'm going to ask you to be on the Latina Leaders Podcast, because I really feel that even though our journeys were very different from each other, I really would love to hear about your journey and how you did what you did, especially with raising your children and going back to school and managing all of that stuff. So please tell us, just to start, a little bit about yourself, even though it was an intro. What is it that you do in the financial industry, and how are you enjoying it, or anything that you want to share?
Sure, absolutely. So I'll start from the beginning. So I definitely went to school later in life. So I was a very young mom. So 19, turning 20, I had my first child, my son. He is now, definitely, if you do the math and everything, he's going to be 29 this year. So time has flown by. And I do have a youngest as well. 8 years later, I had her as well. Pretty much since I didn't have the opportunity to go to university after high school, I did take courses here and there, worked part-time, evenings, weekends, to kind of accommodate my family while my husband worked full-time. It was when my son finally got accepted into university and he got his offer that it made me think. Like, I was super happy for him, like so happy to see him go off into university and pursue his dreams. But then I was thinking, well, you know what? I'm still pretty young. I should, pursue something of my own and pursue a career, because I've always admired women who have balanced their family and they pursued their career, maintained a career throughout. So I decided to go back to school. And so the rest is kind of history. By 2019, I graduated, got my BCom in honors accounting, and then started my journey that way. So definitely leaning towards more the financial industry. So currently right now, I am a manager more associated with like strategy and transformation, different from the accounting realm, of course, but certainly serves itself well because I do deal with some data and analysis and that sort of thing. So certainly applied it there. And interesting work, and I'm really enjoying that journey for sure.
What I find amazing is that you put your life on hold, basically, to raise your children first, which is admirable, because we were raised that way, weren't we? Basically, our mom was a stay-at-home mom for the most part. Mommy was a stay-at-home mom. For the most part, she did have a few part-time jobs, but she really did dedicate herself to us when we were growing up. So I admire that you did that as well. And then it's like, okay, you're still young enough to go back to school yourself, and the fact that you actually wanted to do that for yourself. So that's also says a lot about you and your character. So that's what I admire a lot about you. So can you tell us a little bit about raising your children, and maybe give advice to women that may be going through the same, maybe young moms just like you were going through the same thing, and maybe they're unsure about how to maneuver or how to adjust, basically raising children and maybe working or that kind of thing?
Well, definitely I did have the help. I had my husband. I'm still with him, high school sweetheart. So we managed to work that out between us, right? So I can say that I did support our income and supplement our income doing part-time evening and weekends. So I can, thank him for that support, while I obviously dedicated my days to our kids. But what I can say is that, and this is one tough thing too, is once you are about to become a mother or are a mother, you get unsolicited advice from all angles. So here's a little bit of unsolicited advice. So, you know what you do is what works for you, and just, you know best what is best for your children, what is best for your family. And follow your instincts, follow your intuition, because that will always lead you well. And so that's the mantra that I followed. Yes, we did have the example of mommy. She gave us such a great example, was very dedicated, made the best. I mean, she's a whole other topic to talk about, and, her own journey, coming from Ecuador and that sort of thing. But what I will say is that what I admired about her is her dedication to all of us. She took care of us, throughout the night, stayed up, that sort of thing, and then would go to her job, tired and all, would do those things. So as I became a mother, I started experiencing those things, and it led to a newfound appreciation of mommy as well, and all the sacrifices that she made. At the same token, once obviously I had an unplanned pregnancy, and I know mommy is willing to help, but it's I didn't want her to be the one, me putting that on her. She already was a mom.
Yeah.
I didn't want to put that on her, and it was for me to figure out. She did support me in every single way as I took courses and that sort of thing. So, help a part-time, but not a full-time, caregiver. I didn't want to put that on mommy. It was time for mommy to do her own thing. So
yeah.
To rest. Yeah, she didn't need that. She didn't need more children. So that's the way I saw it. And so that's how I tried to balance it.
That's amazing.
So if anything, just do you. That's my advice. Just do you in the best way you can. And for your children, because every child is very unique.
That is so true. And then thank you for giving that advice, because I'm not a mom, right? I don't have children. However, I do have students, and they're much older. So I don't know what it's like to be a mom. I don't regret my journey at all. I just find that it's just amazing the amount of energy that both mommy and you have, because I don't know how you do it, because I'm exhausted after a day of work and all the things that I do. And I'm like, how do you even have that energy to come home and then have the family and the children and all that stuff? So I really don't know how you do it, but I know in the past you've told me that I would adjust naturally or something like that. It would just come to me, but I still don't believe it. So I don't know.
What I can say is this: it's for anyone, I think if anyone puts their mind to something that they do want to achieve, they will do it, whatever it takes. So I know I put that in front of me, that I wanted to get my BCom. I wanted to get my diploma, and that was in front of me. That was my goal. And so that's what I did. So, and I think for most people, I attribute it, whether it's yourself and your journey, you put your goals in front of you, you just strive for those goals. And that's one thing I admire about many of our successful women leaders. They just put goals in front of them, and they just one foot in front of the other, one step at a time, they achieve their goals. And I think that's just how it works, regardless of our circumstances.
You know what? I think that's a great opportunity to start talking about why we are the way we are, because both of us have that goal-oriented mindset. You know what I mean? And we got that from our parents, right? So we can talk about a little bit of maybe how we grew up and what made us the way we are, in terms of, like you said, you waited, but then you're like, okay, I'm getting this BCom, and that's the way it's going to be, right? And I'm the same way when it comes to my goals. I got my master's degree, and even though it was tiring and just draining, I'm like, I have to get this done. I have to do it. We know that both of them worked really hard.
Actually, go back a little further, because when I was younger, so we lived in Toronto, and we shared a home with our grandparents. So our parents split a home with our grandparents on my dad's side, so our dad's side. And so we lived together. So we were fortunate to have our uncles. I know you were really young, Jen, so we're 4 years apart. So up until I was 8 years old, up until you were 4 years old, we lived in the same house. But what I believe that we absorbed was, obviously our family was very hardworking. And a lot of the circumstances too at the time, and I know when our uncles would get together with our grandfather, our dad and everything, they'd embrace each other, and then they'd reminisce about how hard it was when they first came from Ecuador to Canada, and the struggles. And, it was quite emotional and that sort of thing, but it stuck and resonated with me in a way that, they still overcame. They worked hard. They established a life, and, made many friends along the way. And, had their own careers, so to speak, right? So they made things work, and they were successful, and they raised, a really large family. And so it was great. So I think taking from then, it really left an impression that it was my way to say thank you to our family for the sacrifice that they made when they came here.
Yeah.
And so that's one message that I did share with my kids, is that this is a legacy that we have. Our grandfather took a chance. Our abuelito, he took a chance to come here to Canada. When I asked him why, he's like, just because. He just wanted to explore Canada and just make a new life. He just wanted to do that. And so I admire that. Imagine not even knowing the language. And so, it was a tough journey. So I always took that. And then even with our kids, I was very open about it, that this is something to be proud of. And also, too, it's a way to say thank you for the sacrifice that they made. So make something of yourself in this beautiful country that we live in.
100%. No, I do remember living in Toronto. Maybe not like a whole lot, but I do remember living in Toronto. And that's what I'm so grateful for growing up is how close we are as a family. Like, we were surrounded by family at a very young age and all the time. So if we were not living together, eventually, we had our own home growing up in Scarborough when we moved away. And then we still saw abuelitos or grandparents almost every weekend, right? We still had that relationship, very close relationship with our abuelitos, with our uncles. And I have so many fond memories with them. Yes, my grandfather, abuelito, is a character, and unfortunately no longer with us, but always will be in our hearts and in our minds. And yes, growing up with them really showed us the value of family and working hard. So our dad, worked really hard, and we would see him always waking up so early in the morning, and like he has an internal clock. He's always waking up. And I don't know how he does that, but I need a clock to wake up still. Like, I don't know how he just gets up. Right. And never late. He's never late. He's always punctual. And that's where I get it from, because I'm always punctual and I stress out when I'm late. So it's just watching those kind of things. And even mommy, just the way she was so dedicated to us. Even if she was tired, you wouldn't even know, because she would not make that known to us. I can imagine she must have been tired with 3 kids, right?
3 kids, balancing work and home.
Yeah, because eventually she started working too, and then coming home. And I'm just very grateful for all those opportunities to grow up with our family. And they all came from Ecuador. So our dad's side mostly came from Ecuador, and we had that growing up.
Yeah. And I remember like being little as well. And at the time, like, they took any work they could. And I remember Daddy working factory, but like he started quickly moving up from what I remember. But what he did in order to enable that, like he was studying English. Then eventually he started taking courses, like night courses and all kinds of certifications. Yeah. And so education was always a thing. Yeah. It was always something that was just around. Mommy, what she did with us, though, I remember even like before we went to school, it was like, encouraging reading, encouraging anything that was educational type of a thing, or getting us to solve puzzles and things like that. So she was very driven that way. She may not have, gone on, to study, she studied English and that sort of thing, and she kind of pursued other things, but not so much like Daddy did, because like he was the one who worked predominantly, but like still nonetheless it was always around like books and that sort of thing. So I think it lended itself.
Do you remember the encyclopedias that they bought? They had encyclopedias. There was a time where there were salespeople that would come to the door and sell encyclopedias. If you don't know what that is, look it up. Okay, they're huge books that were alphabetical and basically talked about everything you needed to know in life. Okay, so we had encyclopedias, National Geographics all over the place. My dad was into photography, and I used to love those books. Looking at those books growing up. Just the pictures and all of that stuff.
Magazines too. He had the subscriptions. He had like some kind of science magazines that would come to the house too. Like we were just surrounded by things. And the one thing that our parents never were hesitant in giving us was books, like science, whatever, So I don't doubt that had an influence in where we've chosen to go. So definitely grateful for that exposure.
Yeah, and I do remember, that Daddy is almost like a walking calculator. He can calculate any equation that you give him. He will calculate it.
Yep.
And I don't know how he does it, but he does it in his brain. He doesn't need a calculator for anything. He pretty much knows everything about everything. And so I do remember there was a time, education is so important. Even when I was in high school, I remember there was a time where I was kind of struggling with certain math courses. And I don't know if you remember this, Helen, but he made me and Henry is our brother. He made me and Henry go to a school called Brainchild, which was a tutoring, like an extra tutoring math place, in Mississauga. And I don't know, people don't know this, but yeah, I did go to Brainchild for a while, which is all math, all the math equations that you can get, which was not my favorite subject at all. I was mostly into the arts, and I still, that's where eventually my career went into marketing and advertising in the arts, music, all that. But I was, my dad was like, no, you got to learn this. You got to go to this. And me and my brother hated it so much. But at the end of the day, it was for our own good. And I know that the intention was good,
It was, because I remember going when I was in grade 9 and 10, doing like all kinds of math, and I remember struggling with it. And thankfully, one of our uncles, he had taken a lot. He was really good at math.
Yes, I know who
he was so good at math, and so I could call him like he is like my older brother. Like I cannot stress this enough. Like we were so close that he would come in a pinch. He's like, Helen, what do you need? And he'd come over and he'd like help me work through these crazy, like a lot of algebra and all these crazy equations and that sort of thing. So I was definitely, it was a huge help. I was definitely appreciative of that. But I think seeing that and seeing also my struggle with it, I think that, I kind of was a little jealous. I'm not going to lie. You guys went to Brainchild. I'm like, man, I could have really used that.
You could have taken, I could have given you my spot in a second because I hated going. I was like, why can't I was actually saying, why doesn't Helen have to go? Why do we have to go?
I was asking the same question. Why can't I go? But anyways, I guess it's because I was at the end of high school by that point, right?
Yeah, maybe
so,
why.
It's totally different. But yeah, definitely. Like I guess that's the whole point. It became evident that, it was important. Education was important. And so I think that's pretty much what's driven us, in a nutshell, and when it comes to children as well, like my 2 kids, and I tried to do similar things to what mommy did. I used to get like over the summer, over the summer, I was a bump on a log. Okay. I have to admit, I was a bump on a log. And I said, I didn't want to have that repeat because I remember feeling so tired over the summer and sometimes at times didn't even want to go outside because I was watching too much TV. Right. And I remember mommy would be like, you're watching too much TV, read a book or something. But I remember, going through a phase of that. And so like I said, I didn't want that for my kids. So what I did is I set up like a short little schedule. So like the first half of the morning, always like a little, whether it's like a little workbook, and there'd always be like short segments. So it's a little bit of math, a little bit of reading. I'd give them stickers every time they accomplish something. At the end of the week, it's always like, oh yeah, we're gonna, if you do this whole week in these certain activities, we're gonna treat you. We're gonna go to like the dollar store. You can pick anything you want. Like little incentives like that, just to encourage them and just to instill some kind of routine and some kind of learning in some way, shape, or form. And it seems to have translated okay. And at the end of the school year too, we'd have.
They're doing well. I have to say, Helen's being humble here, but they're doing extremely. They have great. Well, my nephew, he works in the financial industry as well, and a director role, I believe. So I think they're doing really well. Even my niece, she's doing really well in university, getting amazing marks on the honor roll, I believe. So you've done a good job when it comes to your children and even yourself, because you are in a career that you find rewarding and you're happy. So the fact that you're still young and now you can really just embrace life and enjoy life, I admire that a lot.
Definitely is different. Like, that's what I always say. Like, as women, we have to support each other, and everybody's journey is very different. And it's okay. Like, there's women, some women that they don't want
Yes.
family and kids, and that's okay. And that is so okay. Pursue your life, live your life, love your life.
Yeah.
You want to have children, have a family, then go for it. Like, and I will say there is no perfect time to have children. My friends, when I already had kids and they had gone off to university, they were like, "Oh my gosh, you're so young and your kids are pretty independent, and now you two can enjoy," And it's true. Like, my husband and I, like, we're traveling now, we're empty nesters pretty much, and so now we're enjoying our travel and trying to focus on our careers. So, there's never a perfect time for any of those things, but life is life, and everyone does their own thing and goes by the beat of their own drum. So I'm a firm believer in that.
It's so true. And I have also come to embrace my own journey. And I'll be honest, I've been focusing on my career, as you know, or school or things like that. And having kids was not on the top of my priority, that kind of thing. But like you said, it's okay. It's where you are in your life and what you feel is for you. And it's for a reason.
Exactly.
Like, I truly believe each of our paths are for a reason. So we all need to embrace as women where we are, not feel horrible, because society does put that a lot on women you should be having kids right now. You have a clock, biological clock, hurry up, have kids, have a family. But that's the last thing I want to do, is marry the wrong person and have children and regret my life. I just don't want that for me. So I'm taking my time with that and just really focused on other things. Like this podcast, for example.
Yeah, exactly. I know. And it's good. And I think that's important. So as women, we embrace one another, we embrace each other's journey, support one another, because it is a community, right? And so that's also great messaging all across, like even to our kids as well. Like, we embrace women, and all across the board, and whatever journey they're in and whatever journey they choose, because that's what life is. We choose, right? Or we go with whatever and then make choices from there. So that's just it. So
thank you, Helen. That was amazing. I really appreciate you coming today and taking the time to speak to us about your journey, because I feel like it's important to share with women, especially that, that may be in your position, having children at a young age, or just not knowing what to do, that kind of thing. And the fact that you have done both, having kids and also a career and successful, that's amazing. That's a great role model as well. So thank you
for having me. And I think what you're doing is great. I think it's important as women to support one another. Latina, BIPOC, I know, like, we definitely want to see more representation out there in the working world, corporate world, wherever, because we do have a lot of value we can bring. All our values are definitely very helpful to society, and certainly would love to see more of that. So thanks for doing this, and thank you for having me.
If you like this kind of content, please follow our journey on YouTube, Latina Leaders, as well as on Instagram, latina.leaders. Ciao, see you soon.